Test Lab Workflow Automation, or TWA, is the collection of services designed to automate data retrieval, processing of the data, storing of the data, and also publishing the results. And the basic principle is simple. Files are placed on a network location that the TW server can process or access. The files are uploaded automatically to TWA, which runs a full-blown Test Lab Neo in the background. As a result, typically in .lms project, so a Test Lab project is saved and placed on the network location of choice. Optionally, if you've got the Test Lab Data Management product, it can be published to that Test Lab Data Management server as well. So here we're going to find data, and that data can be a .lms project, an LDSF throughput file, or any data file Test Lab can process. So if you browse to a file in Test Lab, and it can be Excel, it can be ASCII, it can be SDF, it can be Universal, any data file you can process in Test Lab or browse to and see a time history, we can use it with Test Lab Workflow Automation. Then we're going to define the processes that are going to run when it finds the data. And then we're going to write the result as a .lms project with the results stored in it. And then as a final step, if you have this Test Lab Data Management server, you can put the data on that server, or you can just download it and look at the results yourself. Listening sources. So we're going to define some listening sources, and TWA can automatically retrieve data from a shared network drive. So if I have a D drive or an L drive or an R drive where I store data, we can access that shared network drive location. We can also access data through Teamcenter. So we can add data files to Teamcenter and we can access it through that. And we can also use the Scatus RS. So the Scatus RS, we can actually have a Scatus RS running in the field. And while it's collecting the data, that data can automatically be uploaded to a network location or placed in the cloud. We can look for it or retrieve it directly from the Scatus RS and then process that data and publish the results. So these are the three different locations we share currently: shared network drives, Teamcenter shared projects, and the Scatus RS. I'm going to show using a shared network drive today, and I'm going to show a video of using the Scatus RS. For the results are stored on a shared network drive. It can be downloaded from the web app, or you can access it directly on the shared network drive. Or you can use this Test Lab Data Management server, like I said, if you want that to publish the results. So here's an example of a shared network drive going into TWA. Here's a Scatus RS going into TWA. Here's Teamcenter Share going into TWA. And the data's results is available for download, or it can go to a shared network drive, or you can put it on a data management server. So here's an example of remote offloading. So one of the challenges we have is a pressure to limit the number of physical data prototypes, meaning less test time. So you got less time available to you to test. So as a proposed solution, we're suggesting automatic data retrieval, processing that data, and publishing it even from remote locations. And there's a video playing here where we've instrumented a vehicle. We're using a Scatus RS. We're testing it out on the road. While it's testing, the data can be uploaded, and an engineer back at the office can look at the results, see if they look good, and if not, have the test technician or the test engineer go out and do additional testing. So the benefit is improved testing efficiency during operational testing. So I think we're going to show a video now. Go ahead and show that video. And this is going to be one of my colleagues, Agnieszka, at a conference. And she's going to show collecting data with the Scatus RS, as well as downloading and processing.
This demo booth showcases SimCenter Test Lab Workflow Automation. It's the SimCenter with Siemens 2406 new product release, and actually it connects to the booth with SimCenter Scatus RS. We're doing a remote connectivity, so you can see that on the left-hand side of my screen I can show the complete Scatus RS recorder application in real time. There's signals coming in, there's the video stream, there's the displacement sensor. And the whole idea is that we have a remote connectivity to the hardware, and we offload the data from the hardware and we do automatic processing using Test Lab running in the back. Why do we do this? What is it important for our customers? It's because we want to make sure that the vehicles can go on the road, do their acquisition, and you don't have to put any PC in the car. We collect the data while the vehicle is still on the road. We do the processing, and the test engineer that stays in the office can have a look at the results, see if there's any issues, still have a contact or a touch with the driver to indicate that there's more tests needed. So this is really about centralized processing application which offloads data either from a connected Scatus RS or from shared network drives within the organization. So how does the demo look like? We have the SCADA RS, as I already explained. On the right-hand side, we have TestLab Workflow Automation. This one is currently running on my local PC, ideally at the customer location that is a server environment. I'm going to trigger a measurement, and normally I would ask my colleague to shake the system such that we see some discrepancy in the signal, but he is doing a demo right now, so I'm not going to disturb him. With a few seconds of measurement, I'm going to stop the measurement, and immediately on the right-hand side, you're going to see that a new line is going to appear on the screen, and exactly this indicates that we have offloaded the measurement. We do the automatic processing, and we're going to see the reports and visualize them in a local running TestLab version in a couple of seconds. The processing is ongoing. You can see the status is light green. In a moment, it's going to turn dark green, and that allows us to visualize the process result inside of TestLab. It's done. The results are available. So the last thing I do in my demonstration is switch to a TestLab application. I explain what kind of processing we do. This is a traditional low data analysis application. And then I have my report already prepared. You're going to find it in the materials that we share with this demonstration. And I'm just going to load the queries and indicate that the project should look at the calculation that we have just performed. So I'm going to do it right now. Measurement 101. Okay. The queries fill in automatically, and immediately we can show the system was remote, we offloaded the data, we processed the data, and we show the results in the TestLab environment. And that's the TWA booth. Thanks a lot.
That was great. So Aga was showing that using the SCADA RS, and with the SCADA RS recording app, that can be used on a computer, it can be used on a tablet, or it can be used on your phone. So you can remotely monitor the test, make sure everything's looking good. But once a run is complete, it would upload it to the TWA server, and then it would be processed. And then Aga was able to download it and then view the results inside TestLab on her local PC. Okay, so there's a couple things to prep for TWA, and I'm going to show this in a demo as well. But basically, you need to install TestLab on a dedicated computer. So you're going to choose a computer that's on the network that everybody can access. Make sure TestLab 2406 is installed. It needs to have its own dedicated licenses for TestLab and TWA available. So you start TestLab Process Designer, and then you turn on all of the add-ins you're going to use for all possible processes to make sure that those licenses are available. Then we make sure that no warnings or errors occur when we start TestLab. So you want to make sure it's not warning you about active picture plugin or warning you that project attachments can cause corruption. So there's a couple things you have to turn off when TestLab starts the first time. And then we exit Process Designer normally just to make sure that all the settings are saved. So if I show you as an example my Process Designer here. So here I've added Process Designer open, and I want to make sure that when I go to Startup, it doesn't show this dialog here. So I've turned that off. And then I go under File Add-ins, and I turn on all of the add-ins I'm going to use for all possible processes I'm going to run. So what we want to make sure is when you use TWA and you're giving it data and we're telling it to run a bunch of processes, if it gets a license error, it's going to fail. So you want to make sure that all the licenses you're going to use for all of your processes are turned on. And then we would exit normally, and that way it remembers all those settings. Okay, so that's kind of prep work. Then here's another slide that shows the challenges. So departments are using different software and hardware for testing, resulting in difficulty to compare results. Solution is centralized processing. So here, we're going to be able to process any data type that TestLab can use. So if I can browse to it and plot a time history in TestLab, we can process it using TWA. So the benefit is everybody's going to be processing all the data the same way. Nobody's tweaking settings, nobody changing frequency resolution windows, any of the parameters. Everybody's using exactly the same process. Then after its results are done, we're going to be able to plot the results in either TestLab Classic or TestLab Neo. And this is an example of the web app. So basically, TWA, TestLab Workflow Automation, is a web application. You go to a website, we can set it up and have a processing library of all the processes you wish to use. We can have a template library for the different project data annotations. Or if you're not using data annotation, that's okay. We don't need to do that step. We'll have a jobs dashboard where we can see all listing jobs and all active jobs. We can go and add additional listing jobs. We can see some settings for the application, and we can see the help for the application. So here we're going to add a listing job. So I go ahead and create a listing job. Up at the top, I give it a name. I choose a shared network location or a SCADAS RS location or a Teamcenter share location to find the data. I'm going to use a shared network location. You can pick a processing definition I've created in the past and upload it to my library, or I can click upload definition and browse to a brand new one. Then I pick a shared network location, and then I can see a summary here. So here I'm going to use a process named validation. I'm going to use a monitored location on this server. I'm going to look for LDSF files, and I'm going to process the existing data in the source. I'm going to use this processing set for interior NVH road noise. And I'm going to store the results into this location on the network, and I'm going to extract it. So that means I'm not going to leave it in a zip file. I'm going to extract the zip file to get a .lms project. And it supports up to 5 listing jobs. We have a 6th one out there just for listing for results, but by default, you have 5 listing jobs. So if you have a lot of processing, you can actually make one big process that uses the pass commands or maybe the split commands to send it to different processings. And I can do a lot of different processes in one big giant process by using the pass and the split commands. And those pass and split commands could be based on channel numbers, channel names. It could even be on any characters inside the run name. So maybe I have a run name that has signature for signature type processing, maybe another run name that has SQ, maybe another one for durability. I can use those specific run name characters and use pass to send it to different processes based on what I have in the run name. That's all standard TestLab Neo functionality. So here's an example of a couple of different listing jobs I made. So here I have a listing job on a C SimCenter TWA folder. So this is where I'm going to place my data files. Here I've got a file name of .lsdf or *.lsdf. So here it's only going to look for LDSF files, which are our native format. It's not going to look for SDFs or universal files or zip files or Excel files. It's only going to look for LDSF files. This recursively is turned off. So it's only going to look for files in this directory and not any subfolders. And it's not going to use existing data. I usually have that off. So if I create a listing job, if it's already got a bunch of files in this directory, it's going to kick off processing all those files I already have rather than looking for new files. So here's the second example where I've turned on listen recursively. So then it's going to look inside this TWA folder and any subfolders it finds there and look for LDSF files and process those. So if you're dragging and dropping folders into this directory, you'd want to listen recursively. And here's an example where I'm looking for an asterisk. So now it's going to look for all possible data files we support, as well as a zip file. And that zip file could be a .lms project and the throughput folder beside it. If I've got a project file named Kevin, and inside there I've got multiple sections, and in those sections I have multiple runs with all my throughput files, I can zip that all together and put the zip file in my path, and it's going to process all the throughput file it finds inside that zip file. There's a note here. So if I'm using a .lms project file with different throughput files, it's going to create a project file for every throughput file it finds. So here inside TWA, if I have 10 LDSF files, it's going to create 10 separate projects with the results from each of those data files. Here, if I'm telling it recursively, it's going to look in all the subfolders for an LDSF file and create a TestLab project for every throughput file it finds at the main level and all the subfolders. Here, if I find a zip file, that zip file, it's going to create a single project with all the process results from all my sections with all my runs. So if you've got a TestLab project with throughput data beside it, there's a big advantage to zip it into a single file if you get a single TestLab project resulting rather than a separate TestLab project for every data file it finds. So this note is very important on whether you have one project result or multiple project results per data file. Then we publish the results. So here I'm going to pick a path for the results. I'm going to put in a results folder. And then I can extract the results or not extract the results. If I don't extract the results, it's going to leave it in a zip file. If I extract the results, it's going to extract it to an actual .lms data file. And then you can always retrieve it from the TWA application. So here I'm in the jobs history, and I can download all of these. So the idea is I have TWA running on some remote server. I go to a website, I see the jobs on the remote server. Through that website, I can use a download link to download process results to my physical PC. Anybody on your network can do that. So multiple people can log into the TWA application. They can see the jobs that are running, and they can download those results. Okay, so let me do a quick demo. Okay, so here's my TWA application. I have it running locally, so it's on my physical PC because I was prepping for it at home. And then this would be usually your TWA server name and the port that it's running. And here I'm looking at my jobs list. If I go to the home, here is where I have my processing library. So here I've created some processes already for human body vibration, sound quality, order tracking, low data analysis, and 6 sampling. If I wanted, I can go to another one. I can give it a name. I can choose a processing file and then tell it to use a default annotation template or no annotation template. And then once it's all set, I can submit. I can have different project annotations if you want, or I could just use the default. Here I can add a listing job and I can see the jobs dashboard. Okay, so if I want to look at the jobs dashboard here, I have a couple of jobs here that are paused, so let me unpause these. So I have a couple active listing jobs. The first one is just kind of a dummy one for user copying results, so we don't really change that one. But these are the 5 that are supported. So I have a sound quality processing one, and it's looking for data in SimCenter TWA. I have a durability one looking inside a durability folder, and I have 2 looking inside the signature folder, one for a fixed sampling signature and one for a human body vibration study. So if I wanted to see how this works, I could bring up my TWA folder here, and one of these is looking at the base level. So this signature sound quality processing is looking at the base level for TDA. So if I try to drag and drop some data here, so I'm going to take this data here and put it inside that directory. I'm going to drag and drop a file here. So this is called spin3 number 2. So it's detected a file and it found the file name. It's going to run that process. Once it's done, it's going to tell you when it's executed. And I'll be able to look at that data inside Test Lab, or I'll be able to use this down arrow over here and download it. You can see in the background, it's switched over to Process Designer. It's opening the project. It's going to check for licenses. Okay, so Process Designer is open. It switched over to the Process Designer, loaded that process. It's going to run that process. It's open project 1. And the next time, if I keep Process Designer open, the next process I run, it would run process number 2 and start the next process. Okay, now it's saving it to the specific project name. If I look at my results now, under results, there's some quality processing. It just stored this result here. If I want, I could look at the process that it's using. So if I go to desktop here, and if I look at my sound quality analysis, I look at the Process Designer, it could be running this process here. I'm also going to run some signature processes. So if I look at my signature analysis process, this is a process that's going to run. It's going to calculate a spectrum map, do some statistics, then do some sections. I'm also going to do the human body vibration. So it's going to do this process here. Okay, just to give you an overview of what it's going to do. So let me drag another process there. So there, you can see here, it finished that one, so it executed. If I look here, I have 2 that are looking in the signature that are active. So these 2 are active. So if I drag data in the signature, it's got 2 processes that are going to run. It's going to kick off the signature FS process as well as the human body vibration. So I'm going to drag and drop some data inside the signature process, the signature folder, and then we should see both of these get executed. I copy some data here. If I go back to my TWA folder, it's looking in the signature folder for some data. If I put some data there, come back here, it's detected that file. It's going to look to see if it's got 2 jobs, and then it should run both jobs. So it's running the first one and it's queued the other one. If I watch Process Designer, okay, so it's opened another project now. It's going to switch over to Process Designer. It's going to do the first signature test. So it's going to do that signature analysis I showed you. Once that's done, it's going to switch over to the human body vibration. It's going to store those results. So it's actually running Test Lab, not in the background. You see it actually. So if you had a remote computer this is running in, you'd actually see that it starts Process Designer. It's giving me a warning, so it's going to calculate, but it's giving me a warning. So maybe I'm not meeting some of the frequency metrics. And if I go back to TWA, it should finish when it's done. I'm going to show one other thing as well. So I'm getting some warnings, but it is finishing. So it executed the first one, it's doing the second one. The last thing I'll show you is I wanted to put some multiple files in there. So if I show you an example here, if I were to drag and drop this throughput folder here, and inside this section is 3 different runs, it would process those runs, and I would get a test lab project for each of those runs separately. If I go ahead, if I zip the project and the throughput data into a single zip file, put that in there, then it's going to save one project with all 3 runs processed inside there. Okay, so those 2 are executed. So let me drag that zip file now and we can see how that works. So if I look at my signature folder, okay, so I'm going to drop the zip file here. Okay, so now TWA has seen it. Okay, so then it should go through. So let's let that run one more time through. And then if I want, I can look at the results inside Neo. So if I open Desktop Neo, I can look at some of those results. I already had it open. So if I wanted to look at some of those results, and if I look at my results here, and here's my signature quick sampled ones. So here's a human body vibration. So there's those results on the desktop. So there's the sound quality results that I processed. And then if I go and look at the signature analysis results, okay, so there were those results. So I should have an order, some statistics, and some overall levels, some frequency sections. If I look at the human body vibration results, so we can start looking at those human body vibration results as well. So that's the way it works, right? We can process data using this TWA application. So it finished that signature analysis one. So there it should have 3 sets of results there. So let me look at those results. So if I go back to Test Lab, I look at the other application here. And then if I look at my results for that signature run that just completed, that was in this recursive folder. So there's lots of data there. And if I go into section 1, you can see that all 3 runs were processed. And I can start looking at results for each of these different runs. You can also create reports. So I made a report ahead of time, I believe. If I open a report here, here I have a report available to me. And if I want to populate this report, I can go ahead and look at my queries. And here it's from the active project. So maybe I want to look for a project on disk and browse to that results folder. And this is signature analysis recursive. So I can go ahead and open this project and open it. And then maybe I want to add run. So I want to add a run name maybe. And I can add the 3 runs to these displays. So I'm going to add the run name. And then maybe I want to just pop one of the first run. So let me turn these other ones off and say, okay. Yep, okay, so I don't have an acoustic channel. But then I can populate this report real quick with the data I just processed. Go back to the application here. So let's say if I wanted to show a run, okay, let's say I wanted to create a listing job. I would go to home, I would add a new listing job, I would get a name, I would go ahead and pick a shared network location, and maybe this is my TWA folder. I would pick the file type I want to listen for. So this would be a .LDSF or a .UNV or a .XL, XLS, whatever you want. Or I could just say, look for all data files. I can tell it to list them recursively. And if you want to process data already in that folder, you can turn that on. Confirm that. Pick a processing you've defined in the past in your template library. Or just go ahead and drag and drop a file or browse to a file. So I could pick a process file. Go ahead and pick the location for results. Like that. You tell it to extract, so you remove it from a zip file and confirm, and that's how we would submit. This is how we make a new listing job. Okay. If I want to go back to my jobs table, here's my jobs dashboard. If I didn't want to get the network location and find the data manually, I could always use this down arrow here, and that would download the project data for each of these different runs. Okay. So you can see it downloaded as a zip file. You would extract that, you would get your project in the 3 process runs.